This is part 3, which is about liver disease. And we mentioned previously, or I mentioned at the end of the last slide that, sometimes metabolism of drugs can lead to the damage of the liver. And it's this damage of the liver that causes liver disease. So I'll just very briefly go through that now. I'm not going to mention it in any great amount. It is covered in much greater detail next year in PM2B module. So liver disease is characterized by either hepatic disease or damage. And often damage to the liver isn't normally serious due to the regenerative capacity of the liver. So it is possible to have acute liver damage or very short-term liver damage and the liver fully recovers. However, chronic liver diseases are actually on the increase, and they are the only sort of major disease type with increased mortality rates since the 1970s. And that's a combination of things. It's due to a lot more high fat and high sugar diets. And it's also related to alcoholic liver damage as well, which I mentioned in the previous part. Now that actually bizarrely is not seemingly due to increased intake of alcohol, but could be related to the way that we drink. Now, the other possible increase for liver disease is the increase in viral liver diseases as well, which cause hepatitis, and hepatitis is just inflammatory liver damage. So what we're talking about here in terms of the liver, I've taken pains to tell you that the liver is multi-lobed, it's regenerative, so it's resistant to damage. So how does a regenerative organ get damaged? And I've touched on that in the alcohol damage as well. The key take home from this slide really is that there are many different things that can cause injury to the liver. So we've already mentioned alcohol, but there's lots of diseases, metabolic diseases, and so on. And that injury, if it's chronic, leads to inflammatory damage, and we begin to get early fibrosis of the liver, where fibrosis is another term for the process of scarring of the liver. And that scarring of the liver begins to disrupt the function of the liver. Now, normally, because the liver is regenerative, if you remove the injury, then you will return the liver back to its normal function. It will regenerate, it will be okay. However, if you don't remove the chronic injury, you continue to damage the liver, and that fibrosis begins to form a complete disruption of the architecture of the liver, the anatomy of the liver. It stops regeneration of the hepatocytes, they don't regenerate properly, and that's when you begin to get permanent scarring or cirrhosis of the liver. And unfortunately, once a liver has become cirrhotic, the outcome isn't good and it can rarely be damaged. And currently the only outcome is to completely replace the liver. There's some classic symptoms of a liver that's begun to fail, and those symptoms include things like jaundice, which is down here. We have ascites, which is swelling around the belly, and that's largely due to reduction in plasma proteins causing fluid retention around the belly. We get itching, pruritus, and many other things, and one of the classical ones is the appearance of this spider nevi, which is due to blood vessels rupturing due to inefficient removal of toxins by the liver. There's lots of tests, but I'll talk about the tests for failing liver in later lectures next year. I think the take-home message is that a lot of the symptoms are directly a consequence of changes in liver processes, and therefore no one of them individually necessarily means there is liver damage, but they're all indicators of damage to the liver, and it gives you an insight into the many different functions that the liver performs. In terms of when a liver fails, we've talked about that transplant is the only solution, and normally it's either a partial or whole liver transplant. In the vast majority of cases, it might be a whole liver, but partial can occur, and it might be if there's two, if there's a donor of the liver, then and there's more than one person requiring that transport, then the right liver might suffice for an adult, and the left liver, which is a small part of the liver, for a child, because in a child that smaller part of the liver will grow into a fully functional liver over time. Very rarely, and just again, this is more to highlight the physiology of the liver. If you remember, the liver consists of multiple lobes, and either a single or multiple lobes in someone whose liver who is struggling can be transported from a living donor. So if there's no matching donors, but someone's prepared to donate one of their lobes, then it donates one of their lobes, then that can be done. But again, that's really rare, and in even more rare cases, the recipient's liver might not be removed, and there might just be a lobe transplanted onto their failing liver, which gives it enough of a boost to allow the liver to recover. So, in summary of all these lectures together, the liver is a really important regenerative organ. It has lots of functions ranging from digestion to detoxification. There's quite a lot of further reading for this. I would recommend reading the chapter on the liver in Human Physiology, Pocock and Richards, chapter 45. You can also look at a chapter describing the liver in any other human textbook. I would recommend finding out more detail, which will help you connect the liver to other organ systems and find out about how the bile is formed, the function of the gallbladder, and what the function of the enterohepatic circulation is. Also the role of the liver in gluconeogenesis and glucose storage. And you could also look into topics like alcoholic and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, although I'll not be assessing you on those. It just might be of interest to you.